Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Shin Megami Tensei. I'm just going to call it Jack Bros. Welcome back to the Jack Bros commentary, because I'm not saying Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Synchronicity Prologue every part.
Well, settle down there, Nomura.
It does kind of sound like a Kingdom Hearts title, yeah.
I mean, granted, Atlas can sometimes be just as bad with Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Raido Kozuno and the Demon Army, or whatever the hell that game's subtitle is. So, not that Atlas is immune.
Well, here's the thing. Around that time, it's hard to say like which games we're actually supposed to have long ass titles like that, because in America they were trying to brand everything under the name Shin Megami Tensei, even if the title didn't actually contain Shin Megami Tensei, which is why Persona 3 and 4 have Shin Megami Tensei on their box, and 5 doesn't.
Yeah, because Persona is more brandable than Shin Megami Tensei. So,
at this point, yes.
Well, I think like the original Persona had a different title attached to it, like some weird variation on Shin Megami Tensei that was supposed to indicate that it was a spin-off. But
yeah,
then they
because
just called
it's
the ones after that Persona.
The original Persona is a sequel to a spin-off, which is called Shin Megami Tensei If, which is basically it's an SNES game, which is basically it's beta Persona, pretty much.
Yeah,
so.
it has a lot of the things that they experimented with in Persona 1, specifically like choosing what party members you got to keep with you for the entire game was a thing that If did first.
Yeah, so it's also a game that we A, never got, and B, I don't think even a fan translation didn't even exist.
There is a fan translation either in the works or completed, I'm not sure.
If it is completed, it only got completed within the last year, maybe two. Because for a long time, there just straight up wasn't one, even though I think the Aeon Genesis translations of SMT 1 and 2 have been around for a good while.
And it's so weird that we don't have that game, though, because the female version of the main character for If is a character in Personas 1 and 2. Like, it's literally her. She's just sort of a standing around cameo character in 1, but she's a fairly significant NPC in the 2 games. So, yeah.
I mean, it's weird that we have two series that basically follow the exact same formula popularity-wise in Persona and Grand Theft Auto, where nobody gives a fuck about the first two games and it didn't become popular until they changed everything in 3.
That is very true, but what's also really interesting is that Persona has eclipsed mainline Shin Megami Tensei in popularity so much.
No, Persona 5 is the best-selling Atlas game ever, I think.
Yeah, it'd be like if, for example, nobody gave a crap about Mega Man until Star Force came out. You know, is one of those. And by that, I should say Western, because these games, while not Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest level successes in Japan, are relatively popular in Japan. You know, they're niche, but they're not as niche as they are here, certainly. You know, so. But
what about snowboard kids?
Falcom has a similar thing going on with the Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky and Trails of Cold Steel and all those associated games. Because the Trails series is itself a spin-off of a game series in a completely different genre called the Legend of Heroes.
Wait, Trails is a spin-off of Legend of Heroes?
Yeah.
I actually, A, never knew that, and B, it increases my interest in Legend of Heroes, because that's just something I only knew by name and not knew anything about, anything about the gameplay of it. So I'm going to open up a tab here on my Google so that I know to look it up later, and then I'm never going to do that, and then I'll delete it 5 months from now. So, thanks. But that's another RPG series I need to get into, and hopefully I'll do it eventually. Right, the next one on my list is Disgaea, because I got the first game on Switch for cheap on Amazon.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is Jack Frost's skill listed up there? Mabuhu.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is Mabuhu?
It's that shoot a lot of things.
Yeah. It's it's supposed to be Mabufu, which is Bufu is the ice spell in Shin Megami Tensei. But because I don't know why, I think it's actually the skill that says Mabuhu there, I believe, is written in in English letters, even not English, you know what I mean. It's written in those letters even in the Japanese version of the game. And in Japanese, the character hu, which is the one part of that, can be translated as both fu or who. So
I
it's them translating it wrong. On Japan. I shouldn't say wrong, but not matching the localization for the Japanese.
Yeah, I suppose.
Fuck English. It's so hard.
They do that a couple of times in this game, so get used to it. I suppose.
Let me guess. This is the shop.
Yeah, this is the shop, which is I'm sure is.
I cannot betray the master.
It's very much trying to be the
You won't go unrewarded, ho. How rude.
This is one of the kind of interesting things about talking to demons in Shin Megami Tensei that I'm glad they included in this game, is that the way they talk about humans is so innocent.
Yeah, they're all like you like the boss we were fighting is like, you smell like a human and whatnot, and
it's like none of the demons have any idea what humanity is like. They have only the vaguest, most cartoonish notions of everything, and this carries over into the Velvet Room attendants in the Persona games. They have the same thing going on.
Oh, yeah, they have no idea why your character in Persona 5 is doing what he's doing.
Yeah, that transfers over. Like, that's, I know, part of the only Persona game I've played a significant amount of is 3 on PSP. And when you go on dates with Elizabeth, she's like like Ariel from The Little Mermaid, where she's like, "Look at this stuff, isn't it neat?" And then she's
Elizabeth is great, and
now I'm imagining her in the someone making a ROM hack of Persona 3 Dancing All Night.
With the part of your world.
With Elizabeth.
Elizabeth is already in Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight.
No, I'm saying add the song to make her do it.
I'm sure you could do it, especially if there's a PC version. Custom songs and rhythm games goes back as old as really ancient DDR machine.
Yeah, you get a US. I think it was not even a USB.
Well,
a connector for your memory card.
They could probably do it on the Vita version. Unfortunately, the PS4 requires like really old ass firmware to add mods in.
Oh yeah, modding on PS4 from everything I've seen is a nightmare. That's not worth the trouble.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I really want the mod that puts the Persona 3 portable female protagonist in the dancing game, because she should have been in the dancing game. She's the protagonist more likely to be dancing. But
I thought that they added other non-canon stuff to the dancing thing anyway.
Oh, as DLC, but the female protagonist doesn't even get DLC because she's actually being canonically reintroduced in Q2. As an alternate universe character.
And they don't want to.
They don't want to mess with that with the writing implications, I suppose. Her story in Q2 is actually fairly interesting. She's the only character.
Is that game out yet?
In Japan, I think.
Okay.
I think it just came out in Japan.
Q2 comes out here in May.
I don't think we have a release date. For the English version.
I heard May, but
we don't have an official release date. Last I checked, for that or for Catherine Fullbody. We just know both are coming here eventually. But the female protagonist in Q2, her story is she's the only one from Portable who shows up. So she's hanging out with the wrong version of her own party, who don't know her and are trying to get to know her. It's an interesting, writing angle, and I'm looking forward to it.
That's actually, so I said earlier that Shin Megami Tensei 4 is one of my favorite Shin Megami Tensei games. Only the original 4. Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse, the kind of Black and White 2 semi-sequel. I hate that game. That game sucks. I'll probably go on a rant about it later. But one of the only interesting things that they introduced as a part of that game's lore is they basically confirmed that in terms of Shin Megami Tensei, every ending is canon, because there's multiple timeline shenanigans going on.
Oh yeah,
that says that every possible ending definitely has happened, because as long as one of your player characters sees one of those possibilities existing, it actually exists. It's confusing, but basically all endings are canon.
Basically, it's basic multiverse theory. Any choice that can be made has been made in some universe. So there's
Yeah.
infinite universes, one for every possible choice, and
That reminds
combination
me
of choices.
I don't know if you've seen the Palutaina's Guidance to Smash Brothers. I think it's of Ganondorf. It's one of the Zelda colors that goes into the multiple timelines things going on. It's
Yeah.
like, wait, so you're saying every time I make an action, there's a different universe where I made the opposite action? So what's the point of doing anything?
Yeah, he goes full nihilist.
Oh, poor Pitt discovered crappy philosophy. Oh,
So, okay, so the multiple timelines thing has been hinted at in canon in Persona as well, in the
Yes.
form of, oddly enough, side content for Persona 4 Golden, where they explain the online feature as connecting with your with other versions of yourself in other universes.
I didn't even know that Golden had online stuff going on.
Yeah, it's pretty basic stuff. It was more an experiment for the online features in 5. Everything in Golden was an experiment for 5. They just didn't balance the game right to accommodate half of it, so it's unfortunate.
It's also on the Vita.
That too. But you don't necessarily need a Vita to play it anymore. You can get a PS TV dirt cheap and play it on your television, as it should be.
Well, I mean, this is, I know, just a point where we agree to disagree. I personally prefer these kinds of, especially RPGs and Metroidvanias. I prefer handheld.
I can argue. You can argue for most RPGs in that sense, like something like that can maybe be chewed up in bite-sized chunks if you're so inclined. But the first time I played Persona 3 Portable, it was at break during work. And Persona 3 Portable doesn't have the skip function they introduced in 4 Golden. So the opening cutscenes were longer than my break.
Not so portable.
So yeah, that's that. It was a horrible mistake, but
Oh, I definitely knew that power-up was there. Yeah, I didn't accidentally discover it while platforming. This is a 100% run, if anybody cares. It did require me to backtrack because I don't quite know all the secrets, but this is a relatively short game, and most of the breakable walls are relatively easy to find. A lot of them are a slightly different color, so you'll be able to figure them out pretty easily most of the time anyway.
Man, I am so overdue for trying out the Persona series because I'm as useful in this commentary as an asshole on an elbow. Because I'm contributing nothing to this conversation. I have no idea what's going on.
Here's what you need to know. Here's what you need to know, John. Shin Megami Tensei was Pokemon before Pokemon, and we're playing a Metroidvania about those Pokemon.
Yeah, so
we're playing Mystery Dungeon.
Yeah.
Only good. Oh, I just had so many people try to murder me because apparently Primal Dialga is their dad or the best thing to ever happen or something. I don't know. Mystery Dungeon sucks. Get over it. Yeah, I'm gonna die now. Anyway, but yeah, if you're interested in Persona or Shin Megami Tensei, I really do recommend giving it a shot. It's just a matter of you can't go into, even though they're effectively part of the same series, you can't go into one with the expectation of another. Because if you go into Shin Megami Tensei expecting Persona, you're going to be disappointed, and vice versa. So they're very different. They're also games.
From what I understand, at least as far as by most of my knowledge, is Personas 3 through 5.
Yeah.
Even in SMT, they're very individual games.
Yeah, for the most part. It's like Zelda. They are connected, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, like, you visit the school from Persona 3 at one point in 4. It's not really important to know that it's the school from Persona 3, because most of what happens there has nothing to do with what happened in Persona 3. But it's a nice reference if you happen to know Persona 3. Like, at one point, someone says a line from 3, and you won't know that unless you've played 3, but if you have played 3, you catch the reference, you have a laugh. And
yeah,
that's about
basically. Yeah, for the most part, the only things that... some things will be a little bit easier if you've played other games before, because there are some enemies
You'll know
that...
weaknesses already and all that.
that will share... Although, sometimes the games will screw with you, and sometimes they just won't be weak to certain things.
Switch the weaknesses around. Yeah, that happens in 3 and 4 a lot.
Although there are just some instances where, if you know the mythology... Because all of the demons... or at least the vast majority of them, are based off of real-life mythology. And they pull from all sorts of stuff. Like, the The Christianity stuff is the most talked about because it's the most edge-tastic. Most of the plot, the main plot of a lot of the games revolves around
We need
like
to kill
the
God.
Lucifer God kind of stuff. But they do reference all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah,
like Japanese, Norse, Egyptian, all sorts of junk.
Even the Dick Demon is based off a mythological figure whose name just happens to be phonetically similar to the Japanese word for penis. So
Yeah,
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like the ancient language for it. It literally translates to dick demon.
yeah. Well, it's a Buddhist thing, and it's like a god of like temptation or something like that. So it's very easy to make that source material sexual anyway. And the fact that it just sounds similar to Japanese slang for penis just gives them more stuff to work with. So yeah.
Hey, this does half the work for us.
Yeah, pretty much. Although there's more than just Mara if you're talking about.
there's
SMT
a demon that's supposed to look like a vagina. There's a demon that's a mountain of tits.
The SMT version of Cthulhu has a penis for a tongue.
That too. Yes.
Yeah.
And oddly, that's not the first time you brought that demon up in a commentary.
No, like this is the first time we've had the dick demons from Shin Megami Tensei discussion. Look at what channel we are. so yeah. There's just so many. So anyway, I think for most people, will recommend. I think at this point 5 as a good starting point.
Persona
for
5 is
Persona.
probably
Everyone
your
tells
best.
me 3, 4, and 5. And after seeing the first 2 Persona games in action, I mean, bless Matt, he tried.
The unfortunate thing about
I was just not interested.
the unfortunate thing about Personas 1 and 2 is that they have brilliant stories, but their gameplay is just so archaic.
I love Sunglasses Hitler.
Yeah, there's a lot of things from the old SNES Shin Megami Tensei games that they kept for far too long. Like for example, in the top corner of the screen, you see that moon phase thing. There was so much archaic bullshit resigned to the moon phases, and in most of the games, it's really just there for window dressing or for thematic stuff. Like in Persona,
Yeah.
the phases of the moon determine when the boss fights are in Persona 3, I think. But it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you have to be at full moon in order to fuse specific demons, but only if you talk to them in a specific way, and it's yeah, so they kept a lot of that stuff around for far too long. So when it comes to Persona, most people will say start with 5. If you're interested in
It's
starting...
the most accessible one, right? Considering availability and just straightforwardness.
Yeah, it's probably the best one too, yeah.
If you're interested in standard Shin Megami Tensei, it's a lot harder to give a definitive first one, because 4 is certainly the most accessible gameplay-wise, but it doesn't really match the art style of the others. Nocturne, I can't personally vouch for because I've never played it, but a lot of people really like that.
Nocturne's good. Just go into it expecting to get your ass kicked the first time you fight Matador.
Yeah. Well, all of the games are hard, so you know that's not.
Matador is the boss where you either learn how to use your buffs and debuffs, or you just don't go any further.
Yeah, pretty much. So there's Nocturne. I also, if you can get over the art not being very good, I also really recommend Devil Survivor if you like turn-based tactics games like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy.
The art not being very good. That's a very polite way to say that the artist does not know how to do anatomy at all.
Hey man, Haru is very skilled at being able to juggle her dress so that it almost does a nip slip, but doesn't quite do it. All right, that's impressive.
Well, you know, if her body is going to be anti-gravity, her clothes must follow. So
yeah, pretty
Why
much.
is Starro here?
His name is like D. Carabia. I can never. He's basically.
Well, he
he's
looks
an app.
exactly like Starro, so.
Deca,
Yeah,
Deca something. I
Yeah.
know Deca because it means 10 or something.
Even though he's only got 5 arms, but whatever.
Well,
Anyway,
you
this
know,
guy's
2 prongs
always.
on each.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah, because he does have the 2 different colors. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
But anyway, this guy's just a gigantic asshole in every game. He's always one of the most annoying enemies.
Sounds
to
exactly
fight.
like
Yeah.
Starro.
Yeah, pretty much.
What is Starro? I don't get it.
DC villain who just latches onto people and basically controls their bodies.
Oh, okay. They're
Oh, wait, that's from like the Justice League episode where
Yeah, well, he's been in the comics for a while, and he was briefly on the Justice League for a moment.
what? Oh. I was talking about the Justice League episode from the cartoon where they Batman and Wonder Woman are talking about Superman's birthday.
Yeah.
Also, wasn't it's a Batman Beyond episode,
Yeah.
which kind of acted sort of like a tie-in Justice League. I kind of hate that episode because
It implies Clark's been under
it
control
implies
for
that
like
Superman's
decades.
been manipulated, I think, for years, which is depressing.
Yeah, poor Superman. Yeah, so anyway, one thing I do really like about this game is the boss fights as well, because they're challenging while not feeling like the way a lot of Castlevania fights can be, where it's just like the enemy hits you once and then you die, or they just throw off a bunch of attacks that there's no way you can possibly avoid them. Like a lot of the death fights feel like that, where it's just like, okay, there's so many sights you just aren't
everywhere.
You're not going to. The DS games, I really liked Portrait of Ruin and Order of Ecclesia, but some of those bosses, it just felt like you couldn't dodge the attacks. But
you kind of had to memorize your way around a lot of that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but one of the cool thing about most of the boss fights in this game is not only are most of the attacks pretty have patterns that are pretty easily dodgeable, but there's a lot of things you can either use with your environment or with the character switching mechanic that makes them more interesting to do. Like, we won't see this until the next boss, but the game does become Ikaruga at some points, which is cool. But also like here, where you have to use the candles to switch the environment like you've been doing through the level to dodge the lightning attacks, which I also think is really cool. And also the boss music is a remix from Shin Megami Tensei 1 that's really bitchin'. So the music in this game is really goddamn good. Like, for something that they released for free, I'm surprised that it's this high quality and this catchy overall, really. It's, oh, man, I'm just gushing at this point. But, yeah. And he's dead. Okay, cool.
And he explodes like all good bosses do.
Yeah, most of the bosses here are just like, what are you doing? We're going to fight Black Frost. You couldn't beat him. You're a loser. I'm beating you up now. Like, there's no reason. They're just assholes. So...
Your friends make you weak, Jack Frost.
Well, he has less friends in this game than his last solo game, because in Jack Frost on Virtual Boy, there wasn't just Jack Frost and Pyro Jack, but there was also Jack the Ripper, which isn't in this game for some reason. Probably because having literal Jack the Ripper makes you less cute and adorable, I suppose, which I suppose makes sense. You know.
Pyro Jack is also sometimes called Jack-O-Lantern in localization, for obvious reasons.
Well, I think he's translated as Jack-O-Lantern a lot of the time. Like, that's his name in katakana is just Jack-O-Lantern, and they change him to Pyro Jack sometimes. I think that in Persona 5 they call him Jack-O-Lantern, right?
Yeah,
because for a long time before that, several years, he was Pyro Jack. So I guess they just wanted... It makes more sense because he is just a floating Jack-O-Lantern. So, you know, it's more accurate anyway. But, yeah, I don't... I'm sure localizing a game like this is not... Well, not specifically this game, because the localization here is not great for the fan translation. But I appreciate that it exists anyway, so I know what the hell's going on. Not that it matters. This isn't a game where the story means an awful lot. It's just go
find Black Frost, beat him up.
Yeah, that's basically the plot, because he was mean to us, so we want to beat him up, pretty much. I mean, there is some stuff going on with the character Jay here that you might think is connected to Strange Journey, but it's actually not. This character doesn't exist in that game at all. So, yeah. Also, that drill was really goddamn well animated. Like, Jesus, wow. Why didn't they released this game for free? Why did they... I would pay real money for this. Make a sequel, Atlas, please.
I could see something like this doing well on the being a digital game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely. If you make it like twice as big and charge $10 or $15, I would be all over it. But I doubt it'll happen, because that would make me happy. So, you know.
No, we don't want that. No, we don't want that.